Where my opinion comes into this, it's really just with one thing. Survivors don't take it easy on us. So why should killer mains take it easy on them? So, the Survivor Rulebook. What is it? What does that mean? And where did it come from? Well, Survivor Rulebook is a term, a meme, if you will, within the DBD community, referring to, how do I describe this? Proper killer etiquette? Basically, is how survivors believe a killer should be playing the game. Unwritten rules of engagement, if you will. Terms of agreement no killer main has ever agreed to. You get my drift. So, what are some of these rules anyway? Well, depending on who you ask, certain tactics or strategies are never okay, or sometimes acceptable, but at the end of the day, it comes down to 4 main things: tunneling, camping, slugging, and 3 genning. Let's talk about it. So, number 1, tunneling. What's tunneling? Tunneling is when a killer main, or just a killer in general, goes after the same person they just hooked. Normally right after they just got hooked. So instead of going for the person who saved them, you decide, hey, I'm going to tunnel the guy I just hooked and go after them. Now, there could be a lot of reasons why a killer would tunnel this person after they had just been unhooked. It could be they need the pressure. It could be several gens have popped already. Or it could just be, hey, they just want to tunnel you. Either way, it's normally taken as a toxic thing to do. And I'm here to say, so what? The reason why is because if a killer wants to tunnel, they are more than in their right to do so. But all too often in the in-game chat at the end of the match, survivors will let you know that they weren't happy that you tunneled them. Now, why is that? Why is tunneling against the rules, the unwritten rules? Why is that number 1 in the Survivor Rulebook when it's a viable strategy to win? It applies pressure across the board. You get somebody on death hook early, that's going to be a lot of pressure on the rest of the survivors to do their job faster, more efficiently, or come to their friend's aid. But why is it considered toxic? Well, 1, let's just get this out of the way. Sometimes it is toxic. There are 100% sometimes killer mains who just love to piss people off. You know them. You've met people like this in your real life. People who just want to push your buttons and see you get upset. There's 100% a group of killer mains who probably love to do that. And then there's the other 90% who will tunnel accidentally. And I say accidentally because I do that a lot. I don't pay attention to who I'm hooking a lot of the time. That's a problem on my end. But then there's, killers who will tunnel because they feel the need to. A lot of that could be because of the in-game meta. Sometimes they tunnel because they can't find anybody else. The only person they can find is the person who just got off the hook. So they can choose either waste their time and go look for survivors or take the advantage right now of the person that's right in front of you, who happens to be the person that you just recently hooked. Now, this is when the rulebook comes into play and when survivor mains get upset about tunneling. In their heads, they think, hey, you should just go after somebody else. You don't have to tunnel ever. That is not true. The killer, number 1, can play however they want to play, however they feel they need to play to win the game. It is a game where it's the killer versus you. They don't have to play by any imaginary rules of yours just because you think they should. So if they do tunnel, regardless of their reasoning, they can do it. Now, here's some reasons why a regular killer would tunnel. Gens are popping really quickly. It took them a long time to find a survivor at the beginning of the match, maybe, and they needed to get that pressure. Maybe they couldn't find any other teammate, and it just happened to come across you again. Maybe it was an accident, and you just happened to cross their path in the middle of them running across the map. There could be so many reasons why a killer would tunnel outside of just being a toxic person. So it would seem it's an unrealistic expectation for survivors to expect the killer to waste their time looking for other survivors when there's one right in front of them, even if you happen to be one that was just unhooked. Time is of the essence, and these gens do be cranking out pretty fast. So that was rule number 1 of the Survivor Rulebook. Don't tunnel. My response to that is get over it. Next rule is camping. A more toxic thing to do in DBD. Normally, when killers do this, they tend to be doing it for some kind of reaction or content. As you guys know, Spook and Juice does Basement Bubba, I think once a week. And it's essentially exactly that, where he sits in front of a hook after hooking someone and camps them, waits for other people to come try to rescue, and one by one, he takes them down. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But what happens when you get somebody who's not Spook and Juke, someone who's just anybody else? Normally, it's considered very toxic, a very boring play style, if you will. A lot of people will disconnect from the game because of these reasons. Okay, now once again, this is the second rule in the Survivor Rulebook, and here's my argument against it. Killers, again, can do whatever they want to do. They can play however they want to play, just like survivors can. Now, can this be considered toxic and boring? 100%. Everybody can have their opinion, and I 100% do believe that the majority of people who do face camp are probably looking for some kind of reaction in the in-game chat, or maybe they just enjoy to see you squirm. Either way, that's neither here nor there. My argument for this video is all these unwritten rules don't matter because both sides can play however they want. So, what's the third rule in the Survivor Rulebook? No slugging. What's slugging, you say? Well, slugging is when a killer downs you and leaves you down. Doesn't hook you, just leaves you there and goes for the next survivor, downs them, doesn't hook them, goes for the next survivor, downs them, doesn't hook them, and it just goes on and on and on until either you all bleed out or he has all of you down and finally decides to hook you. Now, once again, there could be numerous reasons why a killer would do this. Here's an example from me. I will slug all the time. If I'm down to 1 gen and I haven't gotten enough hooks, or if no one's on death hook, I will begin to slug. That will be my Hail Mary, so to speak. That's just my opinion. Feel free to disagree with it. Now, there are times where it can be considered very toxic. And again, just like camping and tunneling, there are those sadistic people who like to see you squirm. I know they're out there and they do slug sometimes just to get a reaction out of you. A negative reaction, of course. It's an unwritten rule that, hey, thou shalt not slug survivors. There's a reason to do it sometimes. Sometimes it's done in poor taste. It is what it is. And then we have the final rule. No 3genning. What is that? What's 3genning? This is a strategy. 3genning is when a killer protects 3 gens from getting repaired, from getting fixed. Essentially, those 3 gens are usually really close to each other, so it makes it really hard for the survivors to be able to get that last gen popped. Now, some killers will protect those 3 gens from the very beginning of the match. Some killers will wait until things get a little spicy, a little dicey, and then they'll start protecting 3 gens. Either way, it seems to me that in the rulebook, most survivors frown upon this no matter the reason, no matter how strategic it may be. Even though it's obviously a smart thing to do from the killer's perspective, they frown upon it. Now, I do agree that, hey, if you're doing this from the very beginning of the match before 1 gen even popped, maybe you don't need to be doing that. But at the same time, with my argument that I've been putting forward in this whole video, it doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter what survivors think. It doesn't matter what killers think. Both sides can play however they want. If a killer main decides, hey, I want to guard 3 gens from the beginning of the match so that when they pop 4 gens, they have to come to me in this circle of 3 gens in my domain, so be it. They can do that. If they want to 3 gen towards the end of the match or middle of the match, they can do that too. I think my whole debate, my whole point of making this video is to point out the fact that there's these unwritten rules, unwritten etiquette for killers to follow. And to be honest, it does go both ways. I hear a lot about killer mains who complain about survivors using this or that perk or this build, and it is what it is. Even if you don't like it, they can play however they want. Where my opinion comes into this, it's really just with one thing. Survivors don't take it easy on us. So why should killer mains take it easy on them? That's my argument. My suggestion to both sides is understand that both sides can play however it is they want to play. Get over it. Move on. Have fun and enjoy the damn game. Much love. See you in the next video.